Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear your big and warm applause for Junior Band! Thank you, thank you. You're just wonderful. Aren't you lovely? Thank you. Remember them, you'll be hearing a lot about them throughout this day and in the future because they're great musicians. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you later, alligator. Aren't you lovely? Just lovely. Oh, sorry.
And now, let's hear your big and warm applause for the host of the events today, Vladislav Violino!
And Tony Karabashev! Hello, world!
Welcome to the very first developers conference initiated by QA engineers.
And welcome to Jonathan Asso Forum in Sofia Tech Park.
Welcome to
Dev
Challenge Accepted.
Thank you, thank you. There will be many exciting new things to learn, many professionals to network with, and lots of surprises for you throughout that day.
First thing first, let's start with the people and organization without whom this conference would not happen. Our sponsors.
Let's thank our gold sponsors with a warm and big applause.
Infopulse.
Bosch Engineering Center, Sofia.
Entain.
Amusenet Interactive.
And Pliant.
Our silver sponsors this year are
Dev Experts.
Lab 08,
Commerzbank.
DXC Luxoft,
Endava.
and Nuvei. They're also our launch sponsor for third year in a row.
And our bronze sponsors, Axway, Coherent Solutions, Merkel, who are a former Isobar, Anthill, NetPulse, Proxiat,
As well as Nemetschek Bulgaria, Software Group, SiteGround, PokerStars, Chaos, and Milestone.
Please don't forget to visit all sponsor booths outside. There will be plenty of special prizes and games and surprises.
To participate in the raffle with plethora of wonderful prizes from our sponsors at the end of the event, don't forget you need to get your badges stamped by every single sponsor and some of our partners. You will find the information needed on your badges.
And speaking about partners, let's thank them too.
As you all know, we are stranded here for whole 2 days without getaway. So our partners have provided for you all the essential needed for survival of a developer. Water by Devin.
Red Bull by Red Bull.
Catering by Coffee and Book.
And Wi-Fi by Jonathan Asso Forum, or mobile internet by yourself.
We would like also to thank our volunteers, the people in the blue shirt. Please stand up.
Stand up.
These are
Applause.
the vast majority of them are also our colleagues and IT professionals. They will help us to make this conference even better. So let's thank them give them a clap and respect. Not slap, clap. And those of you who have been to QA Challenge Accepted know that this is not just conference. This is a conference with a charity cause.
And since we are uniting developers and QAs in the next few days, we'll have two conferences with one common cause.
You all heard and saw how talented are these wonderful kids from Junior Band. But to be a good musician, you need not just a talent, you need a good instrument too. But those instruments sometimes can be really expensive.
So this year's charity cause of both Dev and QA Challenge Accepted is to help Junior Band to get a new instrument called baritone saxophone.
You can make your noble donations on their bank account. I believe it will be written on the screen.
Yes, probably.
Let's wait for it. Okay, where is their bank account?
It's coming.
It's coming. The bank account is coming. You can see it on the site of QA Challenge Accepted, and we will provide it later. But also you can donate by going to the reception desk, where you can buy Dev Challenge Accepted T-shirts, and all the funds gathered will be donated to Junior Band.
Challenge accepted. And now it's continue with our opening keynote.
The first ever speaker on the first ever Dev Challenge Accepted is a graduate of Goldsmiths University of London. He is also one of the top contributors to Stack Overflow, and his tech blog is considered by international online media as one of the most influential and successful blogs for Java developers.
But more importantly, in recent years, he has done a lot for the development of the Bulgarian e-government.
Please welcome the first ever speaker on the first ever Dev Challenge Accepted, the first ever Minister of Bulgarian e-government, Mr. Bozhidar Bozhanov!
Thank you all very much. It feels good to be not the most formally dressed person on stage for a change. So, are my slides going to be up? I have slides. Waiting. I know I prepared them last night, as a proper conference speaker should do. All right. I may have been a minister in the past 7 months, but I'm a developer, I'm a software engineer. And that's why I'm very happy to speak today about us. Most of you probably either remember the actual event of Steve Ballmer screaming on stage, developers, developers, or have seen the video. But it was a big thing a few decades ago when Microsoft took this focus towards developers. Now, they have since changed their focus. But the meme is kind of important for a lot of things to come. So software development, software engineering, I think, and not just myself, is a craft. And I won't go into the details of software craftsmanship. You've all heard about it. There are pretty good materials about it. But it's both creative and a repetitive technical task. So it's neither just a mechanical engineer screwing some boats, but it's also creative. You have to think of stuff. You have to invent stuff at some point. It might be minor things that you invent or minor improvements on already invented things, but it's something that requires a creative process. It requires also hard-learned skills, something that's learned not just by yourself, but also by your team, by your community, by a generation of engineers. And it should indeed focus on quality, even though few might understand it. Now, the QA organizers are the best to understand that aspect, but we also have a good grasp of the idea that we should produce quality software no matter what. And the hard thing is actually to preserve that collective knowledge throughout, I would say, generations, even though we are probably one of the first generations to have a big software engineering community. But there was a great talk focused on exactly that, how knowledge is lost. How the knowledge of, for example, producing processors has been well, not lost, Intel's still doing it, but in the 60s, the industry in the Silicon Valley gained some knowledge which then they somehow lost. We have Stack Overflow to help us with not losing the knowledge, but it's not just written text, it's something in the minds of people that we should try to preserve. And we should not settle for our current methods. I think that's pretty obvious for everyone that's been in tech for the past 10, 12 years. Everything's changing, everything's moving, not just the tools that we use, but also the methods that we apply, the paradigms, the frameworks, all of those things. So it's a dynamic role to be in. It's easy to focus on the tiny, small details, and it's very important to do that. I mean, we are people of the detail, and the devil is in the detail. But I wanted to give you a slightly bigger picture. Now that's a famous XKCD comic strip that kind of shows that the current digital infrastructure is most likely based on some minor library that someone else has been writing for the past 15 years. I had a very minor experience like that when Google Plus was still existing. It doesn't exist anymore. But when they released it, I made the first Java SDK library to consume Google Plus APIs. And I pushed it on to Maven Central, and I forgot about it. A few years later, turned out that this is the most popular Google Plus Java library used. I checked my Maven stats, and turned out that, yeah, it's quite popular. Probably powering a lot of applications, which unfortunately then had to die because Google Plus was shut down. But anyway, we as developers, in our spare time and in our daytime, create things that the current digital infrastructure is based on, but not only it. Every aspect of life is being digitized right now. So this digital infrastructure is actually holding the whole world infrastructure. Now that may sound a bit of an overstatement, because at the moment it is. There are still many things on paper. That was my role as a minister to turn the public sector in Bulgaria into something more digital. But everything is becoming digital. And this digital infrastructure that we're building as engineers is at the core of every other process in the world. And we are the workers of this and probably the next generation that are building that. We might not be seeing it from our daily job, creating the next enterprise system or the next website for a very large corporation or the next product for the startup that we work for, but we are part of that collective that is building the world of tomorrow, however cliched that may sound. And fortunately and unfortunately, that's a blessing and a curse, because the imperfections of our craft today will be the imperfections of the digital world tomorrow and the world tomorrow. Now, the bugs, the issues that we introduce into our systems will be issues that people will have in the real world tomorrow. And it may be minor, benign nuisances that someone experiences ordering their food, or it may be a plane crashing. So we have to take a lot of responsibility for that. Our duty is to build secure, reliable, scalable, extensible, ethical software. Now, I won't go into all of the details of what secure means, of course, because security is a very complex thing. It doesn't involve just development. Usually, however, as engineers, we think that security is the responsibility of the Chief Information Security Officer, the sysadmins, the people that do the network things, DevOps and DevSecOps and all of these nice acronyms remind us that security is also part of our job. We should put it into the application so that the other layers find it much easier. I don't know if you know, but modern firewalls support so-called virtual patching, which means that if the application is vulnerable, they can modify the request and the response in order to prevent vulnerabilities. For example, when Log4j vulnerability was found, this virtual patching was used in firewalls to more quickly mitigate the issue rather than having to upgrade applications, which if they are currently built, it's easy to change the log4j the dependency. If they are a legacy system for 10 years, the build might not even be passing. So it's a dynamic thing, but we should build as much security in the application itself so that we don't cram layers and layers of expensive security technology on top to make it secure. It should be scalable because the thing that runs today for 100 or 200 users may be running tomorrow for 1 million or 2 million users. And it should be reliable, especially in cases where lives depend on it or a lot of money depend on it. The extensibility is the thing that we are allegedly best with. We build software that sometimes is too extensible for the task that we build it, but it's a good mindset to have. And I'll focus on the ethical part because it's the most complicated thing. Those other things are technical aspects. We are learning how to do them. We are good at it, more or less. But for the ethical part, we are lucky to have a choice. The industry is so competitive that if someone asks us to do something that we think is unethical, we can just leave tomorrow and find a job the next day, probably even better paid. So I have always urged myself and colleagues to think about that aspect. First, to not sacrifice quality for whatever business purpose has been stated, because it hits us afterwards, and we know that. We should not put backdoors in government projects, and that's not a contrived example. This has happened. If we're working for a company that's doing government projects, it's tempting to do something bad, and for example, exfiltrate data, which we can use then to sell. That's obviously unethical, probably unlawful even, and we should not do that. We shouldn't make decisions for other people's lives. There have been experiments in the US where court cases are given to machine learning algorithms to decide the verdict, and that's quite risky because machine learning algorithms are as biased as the model you feed them, and this has produced some tricky results. Fortunately, the judge then overrides the decision, but this is an extreme example. We have automated decision making for issuing credits, for giving loans, for all of those things, and we should try to not make very large decisions with automated means. We should try not to optimize just for eyeballs, for attention, like Facebook is doing. Probably some of you heard about my, I wouldn't call it war, but a feud with Facebook, because they're spreading disinformation to the Bulgarian public, and not only, because the newsfeed algorithm is optimized to show as much content as you would like to consume and click on ads and see ads and promote the products that so they try to focus on promoting their products rather than preserving the audience from the spread of disinformation. We had a lot of conversations with them, and the leadership doesn't care. They put it in writing, slightly nicer words, but the gist is that. But engineers in Facebook's teams that's working on that, there are internal documents that they are seeing these issues. They're seeing these issues, they're kind of escalating them to management, they're leaking them sometimes. We have leaks for those internal memos that we can see. And it's important for us as a community to see these aspects and to escalate those issues. And last but not least, we should not create cyber weapons like Pegasus. It is something that's used to hack phones, to track politicians, to track media, journalists, opposition leaders. Actually, one of the development centers of Pegasus is in Bulgaria, is in Sofia. And that's why I'm making this particular remark. It's a bad thing to do cyber weapons if that's not obvious. It's challenging, it's a very interesting job, I'm sure, and I read the Google, there's a project Google Zero, which reveals 0 days and explains how they work. It's a very complicated exploit of iPhone emoji 0 day. And it's great to delve into so much detail, but the end result is not good. So these things, all of these ethical things, all of these security things, they eventually come top-down as regulations. Brussels decides something, usually, or Washington decides something. In rare cases, Bulgarian parliament decides something, and they come as regulations. Build more secure software, do not take automated decisions, cyber warfare regulations, etc. But it's best, I think, for them to come bottom-up, so that our community self-regulates before some bureaucrat thinks of something that sounds nice, but actually is hard to apply in practice. We know how to apply things in practice better. Because hospitals, banks, governments, nuclear plants, airplanes, and I'm giving the airplane example because it's a true example. A plane crashed because lack of quality and lack of software engineers properly trained were building a Boeing piece of software. And all of those things will depend on our collective effort to build better systems, to build better software, better in terms of technical aspects, but also in terms of ethical aspects. And I know it's a heavy responsibility, but it's also very motivating and increases the challenge in the job. And I wish you good luck with that. I hope that I'll be back with the community pretty soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bozhanov, for your great presentation. And before we send him off the stage, we have a very important announcement to make.
Отмести се да се вижда министъра.
The former.
We are exposing in front of the foreigners here. You all know about the QA of the Year award, which we have given for 5 consecutive years to the most contributing and influential person in the QA community.
And now, at the new Dev Challenge Accepted event, there's also a Dev of the Year award.
And with all the accomplishments and contributions of Mr. Bozhanov to the IT community, there's just no one who is more deserving. The first ever award, Dev of the Year, Mr. Bozhanov.
So, let's welcome the father of Challenge Accepted events, Peter Srbev, to give the well-deserved award to Mr. Bozhanov.
Applause for Peter. Daddy.
Yeah, so usually I break developer sprints, and I was very, very careful not to break this one. On the behalf of the organization committee of Dev Challenge Accepted, it's a pleasure and honor to award the very first Dev of the Year award to the very first person who made a significant difference in our country for so short period of time. So this is for you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck and success.
And just if you think that because I was minister, I haven't been coding, that's not correct. I wrote code in my minister cabinet, so.
And now, it's time for a nice cup of coffee.
See you in 20 minutes.